Yeah, if he puts it in a way where it's not dark or crazy, I mean, if it's funny, sometimes it works, and especially if especially a true story. I always tell young guys, like what I write is based off my life. If you can write something that's true, like there's so many funny things happen in truth, in life, and that's what people relate to. That's why I think when you tell a joke about there's something really happened to you, a lot of people are going to relate to it because it probably happened to them too.
If you're not telling something that's real, in a sense at least, if you're not being genuine, you're going to have trouble making an audience relate to you and like to you. Yeah, there's stories that you can tell that are completely fucking off the wall, that are just completely ridiculous. There's thoughts that can run through your head that you can share with an audience that are completely fucked up. But if you're not being genuine with them, if you're trying to be something you're not, like people are gonna sniff that out, and you're just not gonna do very well.
Sometimes, like, the truth, it's like the old saying, like, truth is stranger than fiction or whatever. But in a lot of ways, that's kind of true, and you can really tell the story that someone is telling is true or not just by the weirdness of it all, you know. And there's definitely something about being genuine with just not only yourself but like your audience. And if you're not saying like what you mean and really telling people who you are, I guess I just don't really see the point.
My humor tends to come from things that have happened to me that I feel are interesting and funny, but which also I think can be interesting and funny to other people, total strangers, because that's a big part of it.
There's got to be something true in there, for sure, for sure. I mean, if it's honestly something that you think and that you feel or that you want to sell to the room, then there definitely has to be some honesty in there, because then you're not going to be able to sell it and they're not going to want to buy it. I mean, you shouldn't have to convince people that it's funny. It's just talking about what's already funny. So, I mean, and the truth is universal. I mean, even if people don't realize they think the same way as you do, they think the same way as you do once you word it a certain way. And that comes out and they realize that that really is the element in there. And so I guess in that respect, truth is somewhat important. I mean, I think you can kind of tell right away when somebody says, oh, I was walking up the street and, you know, XYZ happened. And you're like, yeah, no, it didn't. No, you weren't. And you can kind of tell. And that can kind of, I feel like, torpedo a joke before it even starts, because then you've already shut me down, because you're kind of trying to sell me something that isn't true.
No, and I mean, I do. I appreciate both styles. But I'm one of those people that feels it's perfectly acceptable to lie in a joke. Like, I've made up things that have happened to me out of whole cloth because it's a funny premise. But at the same time, I also have material that is just totally based on truth and is oversharing, and that's the joke. So I'm 50-50 on that one. I'd say abstract concepts that are funny make for a good joke. I mean, you know, jokes come from everywhere, really. I don't believe you have to be, there's some people that are like honesty purists, and I'm not one of those. And then there's some people that there's no honesty in their act at all, and I try to straddle those.
I mean, I've told jokes about breast cancer at a breast cancer benefit, and they got big laughs because they were cleverly written, they weren't mean. It all depends on how you go for the material. I think sometimes it's fun to take a chance like that, and sometimes it doesn't pay off. It's all about the audience. That's why it's important to kind of gauge what they're laughing at, and sometimes it's fun to really win them over, to make them like you, and then you can see how far you can push them.
Absolutely not. Everything has to be on the fucking table if you're a comedian. And you've got to, and as a comedian, I feel like you've got to accept that. And I know a lot of people can get pissy and offended. And like Like it's like if someone just gets on stage and starts going off on a fucking racist, hate-filled binge, then yeah, you call them out on it because that's not comedy. But if someone's making if someone's doing subject matter should never be off limits. I don't think for a second. I don't have a problem with anyone making jokes about fucking the Holocaust, or it might be tacky to make a fucking joke about 9/11, but I don't think anything should be off limits. Absolutely not. Our whole medium is all about freedom of speech. That's all we're about, and not being censored. No comedian wants to be fucking censored.
No, I think a lot of people, not comics, or civilians as we call them. I think a lot of people would probably try to argue otherwise, but any topic can be funny if you approach it properly, and if you help people to look at it from the right perspective while being respectful of it. There are obviously some topics, like I mentioned before, like the Boston bombings, the Holocaust, like HIV, how gray Obama's hair is getting, things that might kind of be a little uncomfortable for some people to talk about. But what's great about comedy is that if you can find a way to talk about it in the proper form, in the proper light, it's that much funnier a joke, just because you were able to take this topic that's so sensitive and make people okay with talking about it, regardless of how funny the joke ends up being.
No, but you should always know to handle things with care. You know what I mean? You can't, comments be like, oh, I can tell rape jokes because that's my right to tell rape jokes. Yeah, but at the same time, what will you do if you see someone that's like, hey, I was raped, I don't appreciate that? You're gonna tell them the same thing, I can say whatever I want? No, you're gonna know I shouldn't say that. So it's like, whatever the line is, you have to handle it with care all the time. Because saying nothing's off limits is like saying, I can play with dynamite. But if you play with dynamite, if you're playing with dynamite, if I do the wrong thing, I could die.
There's nothing off limits for comedians, I don't think, but for crowds, there's some things that are off limits to them. Having said that, the best comedians out there can make nothing off limits, I think. Rape jokes are a big topic of conversation these days, and I don't have any, for the record. But people, I've heard brilliant, funny, smart rape jokes, and I've heard horrible, stupid ones at open mics, and people know the difference. It's just that's like saying you should never write a novel about, child molestation, that involves child molestation, because it's such a terrible thing. It's of course, but maybe the novel's pointing out how terrible of a thing that is, and maybe making fun of things like the most horrible things in life, like cancer and rape and child molestation. Maybe making fun of those things takes a little bit of the sting away. There's this whole culture right now where it's let's protect those people. I'm just protecting the people who are sick and who have been raped and who have been molested. It's hey, let them judge for themselves whether this is a funny joke. Maybe they want to take some of the air out of that, Yeah,
if you don't have health insurance. That's fucking stupid.
Yeah, definitely.
And why is
that? I wish I could understand the science behind it, but I don't even think scientists understand the science behind it. But there's something that releases, even in the saddest moments. My family's always been very funny, and they have lots of fun, and we will laugh at funerals. We've had, emergency medical situations, and we all go to the emergency room together, and we end up laughing and cracking up and making everybody have a great time there. And it's just for my family and myself anyway, it's such a powerful coping mechanism.
And I blew through
it's definitely good. I mean, if I had cancer, I would love to laugh, but I'd probably try some weed as well. You know what I mean? But I think laughter can save lives. I don't know, like not from a disease. Well, maybe it would. I think keeping your spirits high is half the battle. I mean, most people in this country, the big problem is like they're depressed. If you can laugh your way out of like bad times instead of taking pills, then I think in that sense it can save your life, and it can definitely make your life worth living.
There's been a lot of studies, a lot of really interesting stuff of, you know, if just laughter changing the, you know, your heart rate, your body rhythms, all that sort of stuff. I believe it. Norman Cousins in the 70s, I think it was, developed, I forget what it was, but just stayed in bed and just binged on Marx Brothers movies and Woody Allen movies and just anything he could to make himself laugh as much as he could, and it went into remission. So I don't think it's a panacea. I'm not a new wave holistic healer, but it seems to me laughter at the very least gives you a perspective that says, hey, we can deal with this.
Yeah, it's been proven. A guy named Norman Cousins was dying of cancer a number of years ago, probably about 20 years ago. And they used laughter therapy, where he was given a real small window of time to live. Laughter therapy at his hospital bed kept him going about 5 years. It's proven that what laughter does with endorphins in the body, and laughter is medicine.
I don't know. I'm a recovering drug addict, so I know a lot about medicines. I know that laughing, like when people are addicted to heroin, and they're like down and out and struggling, and they go to a detox, it's not 24 hours a day of comedy, you know. So no, I don't think laughter. I guess it depends on what your definition of medicine is. Medicine typically does one or two things. It helps fix something, or it covers up symptoms of. So laughter can certainly cover up the symptoms of certain things, but I'm getting way too into this. But I you know, a medicine, no, I mean, no one's getting prescribed laughter because they broke their leg. You know, if my son fell down the stairs, laughing at him would be not good. It would actually be sort of a poison, so opposite of a medicine. However, I do believe that laughing together, I mean, it makes you feel good, right? And sometimes you can be crying or really sad and have that laugh if somebody says the right thing at the right time. I mean, I don't think it's the best medicine, and I don't think it's medicine. Actually, I know laughter is not medicine, but it's certainly a good thing.